Creativity schmativity. Blech. A creative process. Something that every creative goes through, even if it is subconsciously or subconsciously. Consciously or subconsciously. Have an idea that you decide to share? That's part of the creative process. Daydream about a large, fantastical world full of ice-breathing lizards with lava wings, 37 eyes, and a pouch like a kangaroo? That's part of the creative process. Staring through pictures on Pinterest of post-apocalyptic outfits or looking up different kinds of knives? Believe it or not, that is part of the creative process. There are around 9 steps to the creative process, or 16 if you do a certain step every single time. Throughout the process, for the Patreon listeners, every single time throughout the process. For the Patreon listeners, in a few seconds you will see a graph depict what it is that I am talking about. There will also be a link to the graph in the description for all listeners. Alright, so let's get into this graph. The first step of the creative process is challenging and inspiring. In the first step, one should be expected to be taking inventory and contemplating maybe what you would like to create, such as a song, a short story, a novel, etc. It can also be collecting things that inspire you, so songs, pictures of art, a movie, anything. This will help you get in the mood with what you wish to create and be able to look back on it at any time. Next up is imagining and generating. This is the phase where you begin daydreaming about your world or piece that you're going to try to create. It can also be the point where you contemplate characters and their dynamics, and maybe even begin making up fictional characters that can be found within whatever it may be that you are creating. This can be either things that you've written down, such as a character spreadsheet, which I'll provide a link in the description for the one that I use, or it can remain within your mind until you feel as though you're ready to begin writing it down. Now this is where 9 steps turn into 16. Feedback and reflection. This point is included within the steps of 2 through 8, with feedback being the 9th in the center. Feedback and reflection for imagining and generating can be, say, talking to a friend or a colleague about your plans and getting their input. Reflection can be contemplating all the issues that could be present within your ideas and adjusting however you see fit. Step 3 is planning and focusing. This is especially where things will begin to be written down. This would be when you begin to plot out your story or work on creating your world. Decided the setting, and so on. This is also the point when you are more confident about beginning your piece and really want to go into it. The feedback and reflection for this step would be receiving criticism on, say, the operations of your world, any plot holes that may come up, and so on. Step 4 is exploring and experimenting. This may be something where you write up little short stories as a side part of your main story, in order to get a feel for the characters in your world. This will also help you figure out what things would be better to adjust. The feedback and reflection for this step would be having people edit your short practice works to fix any grammar and spelling errors, as well as point out any issues in character and voice description. Say in character, voice, and description. Say in one paragraph your character is extremely sad, and without any incident causing a change, they're suddenly happy. Or perhaps their accent changes. It basically helps you improve your writing and get insight into issues that may come up along the way. For example, my Death Chill trilogy. I had originally not written a description for any characters aside from Samuel, because I figure I'll have future me do it in later chapters. But once the later chapters were around, I had no clue if I had described the characters at some point, and instead just left them blank. But once I decided to write a short story on Death Chill for a contest, I had finally realized I never actually wrote a description about them at all, and instead had to pull ideas out of thin air in order to make a short story more immersive. So having feedback or reflecting on that sort of thing will help you notice errors such as that. Step 5 is finally producing preliminary work. This is when you will start writing the first draft of your actual piece. It will by no means be perfect, or even good for that matter, but it's at a starting point, and it's better to get something down and work on improving it later on. Much like when you're taking a test and once you're done you go back and check all your answers to make sure that they're most likely correct, which most of us don't do, myself included. I typically just speed through the test and act like I'm concentrating for the rest of the class so that the teacher won't try to make me go back and fix anything. But anyway, writing. The feedback you receive and reflection you take while producing the preliminary work is some of the most important criticisms you can receive throughout this entire process. This is when a majority of the issues will be brought up and a lot of changes will need to be made. And for info on receiving feedback, you can look back to an earlier episode of mine called Episode 32, Types of Feedback. I'll link the YouTube for it in the description, but please, keep in mind every bit of feedback you receive in this portion, please keep in mind every bit of feedback you receive in this portion because a lot will need to be fixed. Now for step 6, revising and refining. And yes, you need to do that. Your work isn't perfect, so get off your high horse and open your eyes. I have people in my writer's craft class that legit delete the feedback that the teacher asks students to give each other, refuse feedback outright, diss everyone else's writing, and even completely go off the guidelines that the teacher would give everyone for an assignment because they think that they're too special and are exempt from it. I've read their work. It's horrible. But then there are also students in my class who send their work to as many people as possible for feedback because they want to put out their best work. I'm usually one of the first or second people to read through it, and I legit can't provide much feedback because it's just so goddamn good. For the most recent assignment, I think I was only able to provide like 3 bits of feedback, and one was a spelling error because they put an S on the end of a word that was supposed to be singular, and the other 2 were just sentences that need to be reworded. Seriously, they're so talented and I believe they will go far in life. But anyway, I digress. Input the feedback that you receive. The feedback and reflection for revising and refining can be repeated over the course of multiple drafts. So it's not just a receive feedback, edit, send it off. No. It's a receive feedback, edit, and so on and so forth, until the majority of feedback you receive are just subjective and you are able to agree with it or not. Then that brings us to step 7, presenting and performing. This is when you will share your piece, such as publishing online or posting it, etc. This step is basically when your piece is public to more than just the people who gave you the feedback throughout your creative process. And yes, you'll be receiving feedback and reflecting for this part as well. In terms of feedback, it may be portions that the larger audience would like to see more of that they believe should have been implemented. You can do a few things with feedback like that. Either release a sequel of your piece, update your piece after a bit, and share it as a new book but advertise as added scenes. Create a short storybook of your main book that includes those scenes that your audience wish to see. Or create the piece and share it for free online so then they can read it if they'd like to, and it can also promote traction to your main piece. Then, the final step, reflecting and evaluating. This is the point where you will contemplate if you wish to continue with whatever genre or format you're writing for, or if you'd like a change of pace. Perhaps you don't like fiction and prefer more of nonfiction. Maybe you tried writing a romance, but you find yourself more drawn to erotica. Or maybe you wrote a children's book but find it difficult to use the more low-level language. This is basically where you contemplate your place on the creative spectrum. Sure, you're able to contemplate all of this at an earlier time, but with the piece completed, shared, you'll know that you're at least capable of creating something, and will be able to see how skilled you are at different creative aspects. And of course, you can receive feedback on this step as well. This could be where you can ask the people in the past who have given you feedback, or perhaps your audience, what they think about your writing and if you might be better suited for a different creative section. And that, everyone, is a creative process. Trust me, the entire thing is far more subconscious than you think. And don't worry, you don't have to receive feedback on every single step. That would be a hassle, and would probably annoy people if they weren't getting paid for it. Though I'd say steps 4, 5, and 6 are the most important to receive feedback on. What did you think about this week's episode? I'll leave a Q&A for the Spotify listeners to respond to. And if you're listening on a site that has commenting, then feel free to comment what you think and if I may have missed anything important. Follow at CWC Publishing on Twitter. Check out my novels Death Chill, Flame Riff, and Arctic Blaze on Amazon and Kobo, link in description. Check out the Creative Writing Club Patreon, link in description. Check out the Creative Writing Club Discord server, in the description. Check out my personal Instagram at Dark Night Wolves. And this beautiful, starlight, shining creativity of a meeting to an end.